Longriders Guild is an international association of people who've made a ride more than 1,000 miles. The first people I met was riding from the Antarctic Ocean to the Arctic Ocean. The next long rider I met was Ken Downing, who was riding from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And before we left, I contacted Bernice Indy, who has now completed about 15,000 miles worth of rides. And that is just something that I've wanted to be a member of. It's to me a very almost exclusive club. It's open to anybody who wants to take the effort, but not many people do.
I have always wanted to do a long ride. Ever since I was a little girl, I can remember just having this dream of, you know, getting on my horse and going somewhere. I never had a horse before Flint, so he's a pretty special guy to me. And so I got him thinking that he'd be the horse I would take a ride like this with. But I didn't know exactly how that was going to happen.
This trip, this has been on my bucket list for many years. I had met a couple long riders years and years ago, back in the 80s up in northern Canada, which got me thinking about it. And then on Outfitter Supply's website, I found out about the Long Riders Guild. And so for about the last 8-9 years, it's been one of those items that I've always wanted to do before to be on my obituary, is be that I was a member of the Long Riders Guild. And what are we having?
We're having onions and squash, and then I think I'm going to do eggs separately once these are kind of cooked.
This spring, when we had it all laid out, there was another lady that had planned to go with me, had back problems and couldn't. And when I met Katie at the Outfitters Rendezvous, it was almost like an answer to prayer. I hadn't thought about really who I was going to go with. I made up my mind at that point that I'd do it alone. If I couldn't find somebody else, I'd just ride off and do it myself.
I had shelved the idea of a long ride until I met Tom Fairbank in May, who had planned this trip over the last several years and had been sort of looking for someone to go with. And I knew I was that person this moment I met him, because I just had a good feeling about it. And I knew that my horse could do it, and I knew I could do it. And here we are. We've been riding since June 11th, so about 2.5 months, going on 3 months. And I love camping and I love riding my horse, so the camping part doesn't feel that hard to me. I love it. You know, I don't mind sleeping on the ground. I started this trip out with a tent and got rid of it for weight, so now I just have a tarp that I put up when it's going to rain. Besides
the logistics of having I have a Tennessee walking horse by name of Rio and a mule by name of Bartholomew. I also have 2 dogs, and being 66 years old and living by myself, what else do I do with my dogs but bring them along? The older dog in my lap here is Bo. He has been about 13 years old. He's been riding on the saddle ever since he was a pup, and he just rides in the front of the horse. And Belle, the one curled up over on the ground, she is B2 in September, and she's been riding on top of my mule.
So on this trip, we've had a lot of technological aids like the GPS and the Spot and the solar panels to charge our gadgets and our cell phones, so I can call my mom, and that's been great.
We carry such things as a Spot, which is a satellite tracking device, which to me is a great reassurance, because if we really have desperate problems, they will send somebody in to help us. But it's more of a reassurance to my family and my grandkids and others, because we send out a message every day, shows them exactly where we're at, so people can follow us. They know where we're going. But with all this technology that we have, without the basic skills of survival, of the Stone Age type equipment, that of the axe, that building us fire, keeping ourselves warm and dry, the technology is a help but not a solution.
You know, we're doing this different than they did 200 years ago, but they still were looking for grass and water. They were still throwing diamond hitches on their packs. They were still tired at the end of the day of riding like we are, and it does bring me back to those days of, you know, traveling by horseback. No matter how you look at it, it's an old-fashioned way to go. Well, we started in north central Washington, over by Palmer Lake.
Tried to follow the Pacific Northwest Trail as closely as we could. We had several detours because of snow and trails not logged out.
Then we went across the Panhandle, Idaho, over the Upper Priest Lakes area, down into Montana by the Yak Valley, by the Yak River, over the Yak, over to Eureka, down to Trigo, into the Bob Marshall Wilderness, which was awesome.
We went then through the Bob Marshall on a lower route, which would be supposed to be snow-free, with the one diversion over to the Chinese Wall where we hit snow, but it was well worth the ride. We picked up the Continental Divide Trail just south of Lincoln. We've stayed on the Continental Divide Trail until this point. We'll divert from the Continental Divide Trail and take logging roads down to Virginia City, then up over the Ruby River into the Centennial Valley to where my grandparents homesteaded.
You know, most people won't really ever see a Longrider except for us. You know, so we're the face of this whole international movement of people who are equestrian explorers. There's a definite code of the trail involved in that, you know, that you take care of your horses. Your horses come first. To me, that's the biggest part. You take care of your horses. You know where they are all the time. All of them. I know exactly what they're doing, and you know you're never far from them. So they're a big part of my consciousness. The things that have been tough are just you know, the miles on the horses take their toll. You know, seeing my horse's ribs for the first time is sort of tough, and he's got a little saddle sore now that I'm worried about, and the little things like that. It's not going to kill anybody, but it's definitely a consideration, and you do everything you can to make sure those things don't happen and to heal them up when something's going on.
You know, I think this whole trip, one of the highlights to me has been it just has renewed my faith in people. The people there at the Bonaparte Lodge, just bent over backwards, were so friendly and helpful. People all the way along have gone way out of their way to do whatever they can to help us. Total strangers, they are no longer strangers, but I'd say 99.9% of the people we've met and seen have just thought this was a tremendous idea and a plan, and they just do whatever they can to make it work.
I wake up every morning and I think, man, I'm so lucky that I get to do this.